I didn't mean to spy on my own family. I only wanted to feel safe again. 3 days ago, a technician came and fixed the little cameras in my house. They'd been dead for weeks, long enough for a 68-year-old woman living alone to feel the dark press up against her windows. My son, Marcus, and his wife, Angelica, insisted on moving in to take better care of me. I told myself it was love. Now I know it was access. This morning, Marcus left early for a job interview. Angelica said she was going to the grocery store. The house fell quiet, the kind of quiet you can drink like tea. I made myself coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened the new app the technician installed, just to test it. Just to see if the front hallway looked a little less lonely. One tap, and there they were. My living room, bright as noon, wasn't empty at all. Papers sprawled across my coffee table like feathers after a struggle. Marcus had my red leather folder, the one I keep locked inside my bedroom desk. Angelica stood by the window, holding a document to the light like a jeweler inspecting a stolen diamond. They weren't nervous. They weren't rushing. Their movements had the easy rhythm of people who had done this before. I turned up the audio, hands shaking. Angelica, where's the original deed? Albert needs the original to make the forgery believable. Marcus, it has to be here. Mom keeps everything. Organized, organized. The word fell from his mouth like an insult. The same order and care he used to praise in me, now ammunition. Angelica angled a page toward the sun. Look, Marcus. The appraisal says over $500,000. Albert was right. This is worth the effort. $500,000. 30 years of night shifts and holidays on call. The house where I taught Marcus's letters at the kitchen table and paced the hallway with his fevers pressed to my shoulder. The house I planned to leave him when the time came, not before. Angelica's voice cut clean. Once the deed's in our names, we can sell and move her into something smaller. A 1-bedroom is enough for her last years. My last years. Spoken like a weather report. Not if, when. The camera in the hallway caught Marcus slipping into my bedroom. I switched feeds and watched him pull open drawers, then kneel beside the desk. The key wasn't in its usual place. I'd moved it weeks ago, after a feeling I didn't want to name. He came back empty-handed. Cheeks flushed. Angelica, Albert gave us until Friday. No deed, no job. No job, no future. We can't keep living on the crumbs your mother gives us. Crumbs? The $700 a month I peeled from my pension to keep the peace had a new name. Marcus dropped into my favorite armchair, the one that still held a dent from his toddler naps. We'll pressure her, he said softly, like he was discussing the weather. Tell her they're medical insurance papers. Something urgent. She's been so confused lately. She won't read, she'll just sign. Confused. I forget a name now and then. I misplace my glasses. That's called being human. But they had been watering that seed carefully, patiently, until it sprouted doubt in my own mind. Angelica, what if she gets suspicious? Marcus, what's she going to do? Call the police on her own son? Once Albert files the paperwork, it's done. My breath eased in and out, slow and deliberate, like they taught us in the hospital when a patient's heart rate spiked. I steadied my hands on the phone. I listened to my son plan my disappearance from my own life. They began stacking my documents carelessly, like a child tossing game pieces back in the box. Not the order I always kept. Not even pretend respect. Marcus paused before he left the room, eyes lifting to the exact corner where the camera sat. For a heartbeat I thought he saw me, that he knew I was watching. But he only stared, thoughtful, and murmured, almost to himself, I wish we didn't have to do this. A tremor of hope flickered. The boy who used to crawl into my bed after nightmares, who pressed his wet face into my neck and said, "Don't let go, Mama." Was he still in there? Angelica stepped close, laid a hand on his shoulder, her voice sugar over blades. "Think about our future. Think about the children we want. Are we going to depend on an old woman who gets more senile every day? This house is our chance." And I watched something in my son harden. He nodded. "You're right. It's time to think about us." They left the living room. I stayed in the kitchen, staring at the tiny world inside my phone, the world where my life was being reorganized without me. 35 years I had poured into that boy, my time, my spine, my dreams, and now my greatest love was learning to speak the language of betrayal. But they didn't know what I knew. The cameras were working. The audio was clean. Every word was a match, and I had a box of kindling for the next 3 days. I learned how to be two women at once. In the daylight, I was Mom. I made breakfast. I asked about interviews. I squeezed Marcus's cheek when he kissed my forehead. I told Angelica to text me the grocery list. I laughed at the correct moments. In the quiet hours, I was an archivist of my own survival. I catalogued every sentence, time-stamped every threat, and saved each clip in 3 places: living room, kitchen, hallway, even the edge of the door to the room Marcus and Angelica claimed as their sanctuary, where their whispers turned into plans. Tuesday morning, the camera in the living room captured them with laptops and papers spread like battle maps. "Angelica, Albert has the documents ready. He needs the original deed to finalize the signature comparison." "Marcus, what if Mum notices it's missing?" Angelica smirking. "She hasn't looked at those files in months. We'll borrow it and put it back. She'll never know borrow." That was their word for stealing. He chewed at a fingernail, a childhood habit I used to tap away with the gentle hands. "Please." He glanced toward the kitchen where I was clinking spoons, just loud enough to be believed. "I think she's watching us," he said. "She's sharper lately." Angelica laughed. "Marcus, your mother spends her day with soap operas and talking to herself. If she were that attentive, she'd know you haven't looked for a job in 2 weeks." So there it was. The lie inside the lie. They laid out the numbers like investors: house value, fees, and net profit. Albert's price, $25,000. Projected profit over $100,000 after taking care of me properly. In their language, meant a retirement facility paid for with the sale of the home I built. I smiled through dinner that night. I offered them the last piece of chicken. I asked if they wanted to see that new detective show. Then, while the house slept, I sat at the kitchen table under the small lamp with a cup of tea cooling in my hands and watched the recordings back, one by one. I made notes like a nurse on a midnight round: dates, amounts, names, Albert, Friday deadline, public registry contact. The phrase for her last years. I could have called the police right then. I could have marched into my bedroom, dragged out the red folder, and slept on it like a dragon. But motherhood is a stubborn illness. It keeps you believing in miracles. I told myself I needed one more day, one more confirmation, one more chance for my son to choose who he wanted to be. Wednesday dawned with thin rain tracing the windows. They ate breakfast quietly, tension stretched between them like plastic wrap. When the cups were empty, Marcus cleared his throat. "Mom," he said, voice gentle as a borrowed sweater. "We need to talk about some paperwork. Important stuff. For your security." Angelica placed a fat folder on the table. I'd never seen it before. I folded my hands, the way I do when I'm about to tell a patient bad news without letting my voice shake. "Of course, sweetheart," I said. "Tell me everything." I didn't tell them that the cameras were watching. I didn't tell them that my phone was recording. I didn't tell them that the woman they thought was confused had just become very clear. The folder sat between us like a silent predator. Thick pages, neat signatures, official seals printed on heavy paper. My son's hand rested on top of it, tender but insistent, like a doctor urging a patient to swallow poison and call it medicine. Angelica cleared her throat first. Marisol, we've been thinking about your future, about your financial security. My future. My security. The words felt like strangers in their mouths. Marcus squeezed my hand, smiling that smile he used when he wanted me to agree without question. Mum, you know we only want what's best for you. These are just routine papers, medical insurance, will updates. Things people your age need to have in order. I nodded slowly. What kind of documents, exactly? Angelica opened the folder. A lawyer friend of Marcus prepared these forms. They'll protect you if anything ever happens. Your will, ownership transfers, authorizations, standard paperwork. Albert, it had to be him. The man with the slick smile and the heavy drinker's eyes. I leaned forward, squinting at the fine print. My eyesight isn't what it used to be, but I know the weight of certain words. Transfer, assignment of rights, irrevocable power. My throat tightened. They weren't offering me protection. They were asking me to erase myself. Asterisk, I don't really understand all this, I said softly, faking the confusion they wanted to hear. Could you explain it to me, slowly? Angelica's smile cracked for a moment, irritation flashing in her eyes. Marisol, it's all legal jargon. Over 20 pages of technical details. You'd be reading for days. Better to trust the lawyer, it's urgent. Asterisk. Marcus leaned closer, his voice syrup over glass shards. Mom, please. Just sign here, and here, and here. The lawyer says if we don't file this before next month, it could affect your taxes.